Hello and welcome to another book talk with Tracy. Today I thought I would talk about the to be read pile, that elusive list of books or pile of books that you are hoping to read and sometimes you just never get to them. And I know if you're like me, especially because I do enjoy reading on my phone a lot, or sometimes on a tablet. And so I do tend to, download a lot of ebooks. Also, I have authors who are offering free books, or ARC advanced reader copies to me. And so I do have a lot of books on my devices, besides, the books that you see back there, the physical copies. And I have to say that most of the time nowadays, I actually prefer reading an ebook because I can make the print large. I find it's just easier on my eyes. Sometimes the printed page, I have to get the light or the book just right. Things like that. So I've been doing a lot of reading lately. I've had a little more time on my hands for reading, and I thought, I'm going to read some of these books that are in my to be read pile. So I went into my onto my Kindle account and was looking through all these wonderful books that I'm just waiting to read. And I have been actually blogging about them, and I do always try to write a book review, especially if I really enjoy a book. So I have been posting a lot of those recently. And I thought today it would be kind of fun to talk about some of the books that I've been reading recently that have been on my to be read list. So first of all, I'm going to talk about some Regency books. One of my new favorite authors is G.L. Robonson. And I actually met her a couple of times online. I've never met her in person. She lives down in the States, but she's originally from Great Britain. And she has this wonderful witty way about her. She's an older woman, and she didn't start writing until later in life, but I found that her Regency romances they just smack at such they're just so authentic, and you can tell she really knows the era, she knows the places, she gets it, and so I really enjoy her books. And so just recently, I noticed I had several on my tablet that I hadn't read yet. And actually, once I read those ones, I just went and bought them all. I think she has something like 14 Regency novels. She also writes science fiction and some other things, which I haven't read yet, and I hope to. But I just read a whole bunch. There was probably like 8 or 9 that I hadn't read yet, and I did. I just bought them all. I didn't care what the price was, and I read them all. And I will say, after reading so many in a row, I sort of began to see a little bit of a formula, but not in a bad way. Like, the heroines are feisty and a little bit, modern in their thinking, modern for the era. Often the male heroes are a little bit of a rake, as they would say. They've experienced in love, so to speak. But on the other hand, there's always something really fresh and fun and funny about the stories themselves. And there's some really different things. Like one of the, I'm just going to look through, there's quite a list here. The Lord and the Cat's Meow. The woman is actually kind of an animal rights activist for the time. And so she saves animals. And it turns out that the Duke, he ends up being, this cat is sort of foisted on him, and he ends up looking after the cat, and it's quite funny because the cat is sort of the thing that brings them together. Heloise says no. In fact, she ends up having to work as not really a prostitute, really. I guess that's what it is, but it was, they called themselves misses. They were mistresses to these rich men who were often married or whatever, but it was commonplace, a common practice, I guess, to have a mistress. And as long as, she could present herself well and always called herself Mrs. So-and-so, it was kind of a thing of that era, believe it or not. And so because of circumstances, her being raped when she was young and she had a child and all this kind of stuff that sort of forced her into that profession, if you will. But it's a different one too, because, that's not your typical heroine. And yet she does, even though that's what she does, she has a certain amount of integrity when it comes to like the male hero who is interested in her. Another one, is it Beatrix the Baron and his dog? Or no, The Lord in the Blue Stocking. The male protagonist actually has autism. I mean, we recognize it as autism, but for the era, they would have just thought he was a bit strange. He was a character. He wasn't very social or whatever. So, like I said, I really highly recommend, if you like Regency, which of course is that Jane Austen era, think Bridgerton, kind of popular nowadays because of that series. But if you like that era, I think you will really enjoy G.L. Robonson. Look her up. You won't be sorry. So I read a ton of her books. Now, some others that I read that were on my list were some books by an author from Saskatchewan whose name is Janice Dick. And I know Janice personally. And yet I had never read these books of hers. She writes historical fiction, which she's acclaimed for, and she has won the Jeanette Oak Award. So she's very well written and respected within the writing community. But she'd written these cozy mysteries, not romances. There's a little bit of romance, but in this town called Happenstance, this little out of the way place. And I had two of the books on my device already, and I had just never read them. In fact, I tried to start reading number 2 once in the second book, and I don't know, it just didn't really do it for me. But then it sort of clicked, well, maybe you need to read book 1 first. Hello, which is what I did. And I loved it. The Road to Happenstance, book 1 in the Happenstance Chronicles. And it is full of all of these characters, so rich, and it's this small town. It really did remind me of, like, it needs to be, a Netflix series or something. I said maybe Virgin River, but I don't know. There's others where there's just all these characters. They're all important, even though, of course, each book kind of centers on a couple of people. And what's really cool is in this old hotel in the town, there are these tunnels underneath, which the legend goes that at one point they were used for they were used as part of the Underground Railroad to help slaves escape to the north or to Canada, but also that during Prohibition years in the 20s, etc., they were used as a rum running, where they would be running liquor illegally under the streets. And well, it just so happens that where I'm from, that is something from a town called Moose Jaw, and it is Janice did. I asked her about it, and she said, yeah, that's where she got the inspiration for it. That underneath the streets of Moose Jaw, the legend goes that Al Capone and some of his cohorts were rum running during that Prohibition era between Chicago and Moose Jaw, of all places. So she used some of that in her book, which was super fun for me because I was familiar with it. And it was like, hey, that I know where that's coming from. But it's mostly the characters. Like, they're just so well thought out and really fun. And so the first one, The Road to Happenstance, when I actually finally read the first book, it was like, my mind was blown. It was like, I love these books. Now I have to read the second book. So I did. It's called Crazy About Maisie. And again, it didn't disappoint. Then once I'd read book 1, it just made so much more sense. And here are these people that I'd come to know and love. And there they were in Crazy About Maisie. And so then it was like, well, now I have to read book 3. So I bought books 3 and 4, which were not on my device. So book 3 is Gossip and Grace. Again, what a great book. It's, a young man who grew up in Happenstance. He comes back. He's been in prison. So he comes back to town, and there's, people are a little bit leery about him. And and his reputation. But, he manages to, get a job at a local bistro and prove that he's been reformed. And so then the final one, I just have to find it. Oh, it's called Secrets and Second Chances, the Happenstance Chronicles Book 4. And again, so fun. It takes place at Christmas time. And it just, again, I just love these characters. And I even wrote to Janice, the author, and said, I want more. And she's like, well, I've only got 4 written so far. Other things have taken place. But, it's like I said, I could see this being a series on TV. I would certainly watch it, and I think a lot of people would too. So it was so good. Janice Dick, The Happenstance Chronicles, read them. You'll love them. Okay, well, I'm excited about telling you what I've been reading, and I see that we're already past the 10-minute mark. So I may choose to make this, divide this one up into 2 episodes, and I think that's probably what I'm going to do. So until next time, this has been Book Talk with Tracy, and I hope you join me again. Please visit my website. Speaking of books, you might want to read one of my books. It's tracykrause.com. No E in Tracy, 2 S's in Krause. And that is it. I will be back to talk more about books.